ये चश्मे
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another
Islam.
episode of MIG. So before we start talking about anything, let's do some housekeeping. Abul bhai, how are you? How's things?
Yeah, good man, good. Just the usual. You tell me.
Alhamdulillah, everything's all good. Just a bit cold nowadays, but other than that, everything's good. Everything's nice.
Yeah, yeah, same.
So
It's getting cold here as well, man.
Uh-huh. January start ho chuka hai, so January is the peak month, so we all know that, but we won't waste much time on that. Let's just get straight into the topic. The topic for today we're going to discuss is PGMOL. I mean, any football, not football, but any Premier League fan knows there's too much talking points around PGMOL. After every game week, after every match, people are talking more about the referees other than the match, and that's where the problem is for me. Like, why are we talking about the referees more than we're talking about the match, or more so about the performances by the team or anything else? But before I go deep into that, I'm gonna ask you, Abul, like, what are your like, not that, but the question that we're gonna raise in this specific podcast is whether it is corruption or incompetence. So that's
Hmm.
the topic, that's the debate that we're gonna go into. So Abul, what do you think? What is it? Is it incompetence? Is it corruption? What is it? Or is it both? It can be both too. Like you can be both.
Yeah, I think honestly saying, I would err on the side of corruption. I'll tell you why. In simple, when you watch UCL games, right? Why do the same issues not come up? Why
Exactly.
is the refereeing consistent, right? Like, there is a difference in standard when it comes to European refereeing and when it comes to English refereeing. And that you can't say it's just incompetence. Surely it's not just incompetence that differentiates the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, European referees can also be incompetent, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it seems that the British referees are more prone to it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why is that with the most regulated, one of the more high earning bodies in the UK?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that the case? Because there's money in that body and there's incompetences and it's just not up to standard. I'm trying to control my passion here because I can say a lot, but the main point comes down to the fact that PGMOL is so rich and they have incompetent referees, and you compare them to the European refereeing bodies who are not as rich but are 10 times more competent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a question mark there. Why is that different?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the standard different? Just because this the football is much faster, the standard and the standard and the speed at which the Premier League game is played is much faster than European game. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that. That's not. I don't think that's a good enough reason because
Yeah.
if it comes to standard of refereeing, you also compare standard of football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what differentiates. That's the main overarching difference
Mm-hmm.
in European and English football. And I just don't seem to understand why there's so many decisions every week, especially in England,
Mm-hmm.
that raise so many questions. It
Yeah,
just
because
comes down to I think it's just yeah, go on,
in
sorry.
common. Yes, no. I was gonna say because it's not like in European games or any other games other than Premier League, there aren't decisions that don't make sense or maybe wrong decisions are made. Okay, but they're not as much as there are in the Premier League. Maybe like it happens in Europe. Obviously, it's a human who's refereeing. Okay, so he's gonna make mistakes. He's gonna maybe give a decision that maybe some people not agree with, but it could be debatable. Then some there may be some that are outright wrong, but those are very few and far between. Like
Yeah.
But in the Premier League, it's every game week. It's almost every game week. Not almost, it's every game week. Either it's with Arsenal, either it's with Chelsea, either it's United, Liverpool. It's one or the other team gets screwed up in every game week. So it's not like there's so few and far in between that you say, okay, oh, okay, no, you can put it down to human error. And what was VAR brought in for? It was brought in to reduce this human error. Okay, like our two eyes cannot see everything on the pitch. 100% you
Hmm.
agree with that. And I feel like before VAR came in, people just put it down to human error. Okay, referee can't see everything. Okay, there was a guy in the middle or whatever, like his vision was blocked, whatever. Like you could give 1,000 excuses. But when there's camera angles, when there, you can replay it, you're sitting in a room watching it on a replay with maybe 10, 15 different angles. Even after that, you're coming up with wrong decisions. Like the basics, you're supposed to do the basics. Like I'm gonna go, I mean, a year and a half behind, but Arsenal versus Brentford, they forgot to draw the offside lines. Like, like, what's your job? Like, why are you sitting in a room with a TV with the ability to rewind all of that and watch it again, and you forgot to draw the offside lines? Like, give me one more
That's
example in anywhere in the world where that happens. And
that's
another VR incident.
incompetence of the highest order. You
And then,
can't argue that.
like, that's where I feel like there's a bit of corruption too, because then those referees don't get punished. They
Yeah.
walk away with nothing, not even a slap on the wrist, nothing.
Listen.
Nothing happens.
These referees are then promoted. For
Mm-hmm.
example, Anthony Taylor. Okay, the guy. I don't know why they think that he's the best English referee. Off the top of my mind, I can think of six referees who are better than him, right? But he's supposedly the best English referee, and Roma fans hate him. Inter Milan fans hate him. English fans hate him,
Everyone, it's
and he's
like,
supposed to be the best. He's supposed to be the best. That's your standard. Like
mm-hmm.
that's the best you can produce. It's it's just a joke. It has to be like there must be an ulterior reason to explain all these problems that come in, week out, especially with more renowned referees, right? Like Anthony Taylor. I mean, I don't know. It's more of a rant at this rate, but
I mean, it
what
is
I
a
mean to
rant
say is like,
because we both have very passionate. Because we're not, neither of us are City fans, so we are at the end of
yeah,
bad decisions. Okay, there's only one team that doesn't get any bad decisions, and that's City. But every other team, at one point, like maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, when I was younger, I used to think that there's a agenda against Arsenal. But then growing up, I realized it just happens with everyone. It happens with everyone. Like you barely get on the good side of the decision, but you're almost always like, look at Wolves. How many times they've screwed up Wolves over like those decisions? I mean, a 10-year-old with no experience in football can be like, okay, no, that was wrong. But those referees,
yeah,
like
but
nothing. Like,
you know, to build on from your point, I mean, because it's a recent controversy. If you look at David Coop,
mm-hmm,
okay,
mm-hmm.
he's he's one of well, not the best referees, but he's one of the referees in the Premier
Senior,
League.
like he
Okay,
was a senior
uh,
referee in the Premier League, so.
yeah, and he came out and showed expressed his hate toward Liverpool and Klopp in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, you're human, you can't help it, you like and you dislike teams, players, people, whatever, that's fine. But that's deeply concerning because if one referee can come out and say it so publicly, okay, under the influence, whatever you want to say, right? But to have such strong views and to act upon them in games, that's ridiculous,
Mm-hmm.
right? That okay, maybe that counteracts my point about corruption because that's not corruption. That's just I don't know what that is. That's trying to influence the game because of your own likes and dislikes. Because he disliked Klopp, he's giving decisions against Liverpool, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure there's so many referees out there who have a preference or don't like a team that they're
Mm-hmm.
refereeing, right? And there's been times where referees have refereed a game where their club, the one that they support, is playing.
Mm-hmm.
What? How can you allow that? How can you allow that? Right? Like, if anyone has a preference for a club, it doesn't have to be his boyhood club, right? But as we all know, as a football fan, you support one club, but you can like other clubs. You can have a preference for other clubs. You can't be refereeing their games either
Mm-hmm.
because there's inner bias that's going to come out in the decisions that you make in that game. And it's very evident with Premier League referees. PGMOL need to fix this. If I need to fix this, I don't even know what solution they've got. The best solution they've got is to rehaul the entire system.
Yeah,
Really.
like just get rid of it, like because I don't think PGMOL can do much about it because from top to bottom, they're all of them are like it's a group, right? So from top to bottom, they're gonna protect each other, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
in moments like some like yeah, I said earlier that they don't get a slap on the wrist even, but maybe there's 1% times you can take out. Okay, okay, they got a slap on the wrist, and that was they got demoted to championship for one game. Next game they're back. What kind of
Yeah.
punishment is that?
Mm-hmm.
Like just you're demoted for one game for the championship, and the next game you're back. And like there's so many examples we can list down over here, like that were like outrageous, like simply outrageous. Like just top of my head, the Kukurea hair pull. I mean,
I
and
was thinking
like
of the same thing,
and
Uh,
like the Brentford not drawing the lines, or like even like last year something happened with Liverpool Tottenham game. I don't exactly remember what happened, but the guy got demoted for one championship game and then came back. But it just happens every other week, and there's no talking about it. There's nothing like I feel like one of the culprits in this is also Sky Football. Like they have a show dedicated to referee watch. All the all they do is the referee that's the ex referee that's on the pundit on that show. All he does is make excuses and justify the decisions they made. That's it. He never calls them out. He never says he was wrong. It was like, what's the point? They're just shoving it down everyone's throat. No, it's right. It's right. It's like, no, you can't. You can't talk about it. Managers can't talk about it, and players can't talk about it. Even if you go up to the referee and show some what's the word? Do not agree with
dissent.
them, dissent or anything, you get a yellow card.
I mean, to be honest, like in Chelsea versus Bournemouth this season, I think there was 6 or 7 yellow cards against Chelsea players for dissent,
For dissent,
right?
yeah.
Only
Mm-hmm.
only for that one game. Okay. Now I can think because of recency bias, I can think of Chelsea versus who did we play on the weekend? Crystal Palace. And there was so many times where players were openly dissenting and arguing with the referee, but no yellow cards were doled out. So I don't get it. Like
Yeah, there's no
for one
consistency.
game,
There's no consistency.
for
Like
one
one,
game,
hmm I
for
have
one game,
never seen.
you decide to dole out
Mhm.
for any dissent, right? This guy just came up to the referee trying to plead his innocence by saying, "Oh, I got my hands behind my back." He gave him a yellow card. Chelsea versus Bournemouth, Anthony Taylor. Okay,
I
and
mean,
in
this
this,
happens every
in
week. Like, they make decisions that you never see.
but
There's no consistency. Like, Rice tapping the ball away, got sent off. You've never seen it again. The only time it happened was Trossard, and that's it. That's it. I can come up with 1,000 examples in this season. Only players that have kicked the ball away, no card, nothing. There's no consistency. Okay, if you want, like, my point is, okay, if you want to make that rule that kicking the ball away is a yellow card, be consistent with it. There's no consistency. One week it's this rule, the other week it's this rule, the third week is this rule. Like there's no consistency to it. And like going
yeah,
back to that, uh, and like I think it was Anthony Taylor who was refereeing that game, and I don't remember who the guy was on VAR, but I clearly remember this happened. He said it in an interview that he didn't want to send his guy to the monitor because he had a like because it was a big game and he just wanted to protect his friend. What do you mean you want to protect your friend? Like you're not gonna send him to
mm-hmm.
the monitor and not make him watch the replay because you're protecting him because he had a hard game. That's his job. Like, if I'm gonna tell my kids, be a PGMOL referee, that's the safest job in the world. No matter what you do, no matter how big of a
Yeah,
screw up you make, you're gonna be secure. Your
you
job
can
is
get
gonna
away
be
with it.
secure. Your job's gonna be
You,
secure. Like, if anything, the president is gonna come and support you. Is gonna back you. That no, and like managers in press conferences can't say anything. It's like Mourinho. If I say anything, I'm gonna be suspended. Like his famous quote. If
yeah,
I say something, like you can't say anything. Like you can't say anything. You can't. There's no other side to it. It's just whatever the referee does, just sit down and accept it. Like what? And like even if like I would agree to that, like if they weren't making these many mistakes, if it was one in like there were few and far in between, like once every like 18 game weeks or something, that's fine. No one's gonna complain. It happens in the Champions League too. It happens probably in other leagues too, but no one
we
complains.
understand. We
Mm-hmm.
understand because they're human at the end of the day. But if the same referee in one game is giving a yellow card for kicking the ball away, he should be given a yellow card for kicking the ball away in the next game if it happens, right? You can't, if it's the same guy, right? Two different games, and he's given two different decisions in the same circumstance does not make any sense. The only way to justify that, sadly, is corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't be okay, you can't be that incompetent, you can't be that daft. That's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous.
Exactly. After certain point, you have to say this can't be incompetence. Like a
Yeah,
multi-billion-dollar company, it's like it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not a few hundred thousands or anything. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and
you know,
they don't know how to act
I
right, bro.
but you know what? I think honestly, I found the diagnosis for PGMOL. Okay. In simple words, they're so incompetent that you don't question their incompetence. You question whether they're corrupt or not. That's
Hmm.
it. Because you can't be that incompetent. That's what we're trying to prove in this small podcast is is it really that incompetent or they're just corrupt? There's no other way to explain it. We don't have any proof for their corruption. We do
Hmm.
not. But they're incompetent to a point where we think that they either don't know jack shit about football or they don't they've just learned refereeing 2 days ago because they're not consistent with their own damn decisions.
Hmm.
And it's ridiculous. Their own decisions. You know what? Forget everything else. Forget the white noise. Forget what the media say. Forget what managers say. Forget what players say. If you're a referee, if you're a human, if you have half a brain, you keep consistent in your games. Give the
Hmm.
same decision in your games. Anthony Taylor, after Chelsea versus Bournemouth, no yellow cards doled out for dissent like he did in that game. Not saying he didn't dole out yellow cards for dissent as a whole, but not like that game. Now,
Hmm.
why does that game deserve a different treatment to any other game that he's refereeing? Why? Corruption? No proof, but corruption.
Hmm.
How else do you explain that? How else
Like,
does anyone explain
hmm
that?
like
Unless
Michael Oliver,
PGMOL
like.
came out.
Like
So,
Michael Oliver, like he's given zero red cards against City, and then you hear like he's refereeing a freelancer in a game in UAE that's owned
hmm,
by the city, that's run by the city owners, and you see his stats for City. Like obviously you can argue for unbiased, oh sorry, subconscious biasness. Okay, subconscious biasness exists for everybody. It exists for me, it exists for you. But my I have a conscious bias for Arsenal. So I'm not gonna like when it comes to conscious bias, which I have for Arsenal, I shouldn't be refereeing Arsenal games because I'm gonna have a bias towards Arsenal. Obviously, I'm gonna have a bias towards Arsenal. This it's the thing about having conscious biasness towards people. Unconscious biasness, it exists for everyone. You can't argue for that. It's a human thing. It's a human trait that's gonna exist. You can't do much about it. But and like conscious biasness for teams and like against teams, it's not for mostly, it's mostly against teams. Like the biggest example, because this came out and it's proven, David Coote, like against
yeah.
Liverpool, only because Klopp didn't answer him correctly or didn't listen to him. He just hates that guy.
You know, in the bigger grand scheme of things, if you look at the Coot example, right? Coot potentially lost Liverpool a title
Probably, yeah,
in
probably.
that season.
Mm-hmm.
Single-handedly, a referee ruined a club's chances of winning the Premier League. Do you understand, as a viewer, you don't even have to support any
Mm-hmm.
team to be able to appreciate the fact that referees have that kind of influence. Referees
Mm-hmm.
have one referee has influence enough to stop, to make or break a club's chances of achieving whatever they want to achieve. Top four, Premier League title, away from relegation. That's what one referee has
Mm-hmm.
to some extent because they know they have so much power. And on top of everything, you can't really criticize them.
You
As in,
can't.
the managers can't say anything about against them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's this like safe bubble that they live in, knowing they have that much power and they won't be criticized in the media. Max that's going to happen is fans criticize them, but that's the same as fans criticizing a team that's playing away from home fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Chelsea go to the Tottenham Stadium, the Tottenham fans would throw in toilet rolls and stuff like that on Chelsea players. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so referee faces the same. When it comes to the worst extent of criticism they face, it's the worst extent a footballer on the pitch does. Nothing more, nothing less.
Mm-hmm.
When they have more power than that individual footballer. So why not warrant them for more criticism by managers? Why not allow that?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like what they should do is the referee should come out after every game and talk about the decisions and give his justification for the decisions that he made. Like every after if Arsenal loses, a player has to go out and the media is going to question them. The managers has to do a press conference and the media and everyone is going to question them like, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why didn't you do this? But the referees, nothing. They don't have to come out. They don't have to justify their decisions to anyone. They don't have to justify it to anyone. Not the managers, not the players. Whatever they say, it's that's it. That's written in stone. Like that is it. And like your example, like one man can cost 100%. Like I can give a countless examples in the past 2 years where I feel Arsenal have been screwed up, and those 2 point difference that we lost the league by, you could have made that up just because of
Yeah.
freaking refereeing decisions. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like
Mm-hmm.
I don't like blaming the referee for the outcome of the game because I feel like you should do a good enough of a job to win it just by yourself. But sometimes you can't play good 38 game weeks, and sometimes this is a match that's going to be 1-0. And when that goes against you, that's 2 points drop. Like for example, the refereeing decision on the weekend against Brighton, clash of heads. There's never ever been a penalty for a clash of heads. And that ball hit Saliba in the head. It's not even like he didn't get the ball; he just clashed into the guy. It hit his head, and it was a clash of heads that happens in football. When two people go for the ball with their heads, it happens. But it's not a foul. It's never been a foul, and it's never gonna be a foul. There's so many ex pros that I've seen that come out and been like, "This is never a penalty." Fair enough. Okay, fine. That's like the outrageous decisions. I don't want to blame us because we like blame the referee for that too much because we played horrendously in that game. But when it happens game week in, game week out, that's when you start to get
And
frustrated. That's when you're like, just enough is enough, bro. Like, how
yeah,
long are we supposed to just take it in and be like, oh, no, our team wasn't good enough, so we can't blame the referees? I don't like blaming
and
the referees, but sometimes you just can't. Like, sometimes they just do some so outrageous things that you like I don't know what to do. Should like sometimes I want to smash my head in the wall. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like,
it's
what are the team
again
supposed to
like
do at sometimes, bro?
football is a game of thin margins. By
Very thin
thin
margins.
margins, it doesn't just mean your points on the league table, your goal difference, your goals scored, your goals against. It comes down to individual matches, individual decisions made by referees as well. So Arsenal losing by 2 points, maybe in that season, there wasn't a case that there was a I mean, this is not hypothetically possible, but for the sake of conversation, let's say if the refereeing was perfect and Arsenal deserved to be where they were, but refereeing for City was favorable for City, which
Mm-hmm.
gave them the 2 point gap, right? Coming to the point where it doesn't have to be, it's against all teams. So when you lose a game, right, because of a bad decision, you know that that one bad decision cannot define your game. You should have been better than that, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, right? But the point I'm trying to come to is yes, happens week in, week out. You swallow it, you get on with life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some decisions are outrageously wrong. They're
Mm-hmm.
not outrageous, they're outrageously wrong, right? Lack of consistency limits us from comparing two similar decisions against each other because, again, for one decision, they may give a penalty, for the other decision, they may not give a penalty. At this rate, we're basically just playing dice with each other. Whatever comes, yeah, we'll roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's the problem because as fans, we've seen this for absolute ages, and it's football. We're not saying that it's that bad that they should, it affects football that much. But for some clubs, it's more, and for some clubs, it's less. Whether that's conscious or unconscious, we don't know. We will never be able to prove that. But we can say with almost 100% certainty, maybe it's bias. But some clubs face it more than others.
Yeah,
And that's
I
a
agree with
simple
that.
point.
Some do, some do. Like same thing. Like I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I'm gonna bring this point up. Like Liverpool season, I think when they finished 1 point off them, the Rodri handball against
Yeah.
Everton, if that's a penalty and Everton score, that's probably a draw. And that they drop 2 points, they won the league by 1 point. That's Liverpool's league. So like these small margins, like
You
like
know
if
who
it
gave
happened,
that decision?
uh,
You know
uh,
who gave that decision?
Michael Oliver, I think.
Was it Michael Oliver or David Coote?
I think it was Michael Oliver on the VAR or something. Like Michael Oliver was a part of this. So either he was refereeing or he's a part of VAR. But yeah, like for that, like like these, like if like there's some decisions that are 50-50. Okay, like there are some decisions that are 50-50. They can go either way. One day they go for you, one day they go against you. But those, I feel like those don't happen as much as those outrageously wrong decisions. I feel like those happen more often, and that's the problem I feel like over here. Like if there were these decisions that were 50-50 and that happened every couple of weeks, no one's gonna bat an eye, no one's gonna talk too much about it because, put it down to human or whatever. Like it happened few and far between, no one cares. But these
Hmm.
like, at least one outrageously wrong decision happens each game week. And like there's there's nothing, like there's no, what's the word for it, consequences for it. There's no consequences for it. There's nothing. Like the max they were gonna do is issue an apology. Oh, we issued an apology. Great.
But okay, like, what do you think would be a suitable response for the
Uh,
PGMOL to take to increase and better the standard of refereeing? Not increase, make it more efficient and consistent. What would you do if you were PGMOL?
two 2 points. Unrealistically, I would say the FA needs to get rid of PGMOL, completely get rid of it, and start from scratch. That's never gonna happen. So that's unrealistic. But
No,
realistic.
but even one sec. Let me just on that point just point out something. Most times, whenever this happens in a political situation as well, where they remove an entity completely and replace it with another, essentially what's happening is they draw out the name of that entity, rename that entity, and
Mhm.
operate under the same
Yeah, I mean, if that happens,
circumstances. So
I'm
it
not
doesn't
saying
change
that. Like,
much.
completely get rid of all the referees, like, not all, but the Premier League referees, get rid of the PGMOL completely, and then start fresh. Like, not just change the name, like, start a new association, whatever this is, like, whatever it is. Like, start from scratch, completely new. That's never gonna happen. That's very unrealistic. But what realistic thing I think can and should happen is the referee should first. it should be an open conversation like it happens in the NFL or in the NBA. The referee has a mic and he announces, and everyone in the stadium hears what's the conversation between the referee and the one who's on the video assistant referee. And they tell you, okay, this is what happened, this is what happened, this one, and this is the decision we're giving you. There's open communication. That doesn't happen in the Premier League, first. And second, they need to come out after every game, do a press conference and justify their decision. They should tell why we gave this decision. And then the media or anyone should bring up points. Okay, fine. If you think this decision, then why didn't you do this last week or the day, like the week before that? So this should be put on the spot and questioned. What? Because I feel like if they're questioned, then I feel like it's going to reduce it a little bit. Obviously, not get rid of it because they're still incompetent, right? They're still incompetent. So,
It it induces a bit of fear
mm-hmm,
of criticism, which is
mm-hmm,
only healthy,
mm-hmm.
right? When they don't
Critical
fear criticism,
critical criticism is good for you. I'm not saying go out and abuse them. There's a difference between abuse and critical criticism, all right? If you criticize someone critically, that's fine. You can tell them, okay, you should improve this, you should improve that. But like, no one's talking about abuse here. But just coming out and justifying your decisions gives you a moment of thought. Okay, I have to go after this match and justify it. So I need to think it through. Okay, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why am I doing this? So it gives you a moment of thought that I'll have to justify it, because now they don't have to justify it to anyone. Not the players, not the managers, not the media, not the association, nothing. They don't have to justify it. If I want to give a penalty for nothing, I'm going to give a penalty for nothing. Do what you can. Can you do anything? No, you can't.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think like maybe scrapping the PGMOL and starting new is a bit, again, wishful
Unrealistic. Yeah.
thinking, a bit, unrealistic. But I'm with you on that. If it was possible and if it was on the table, I'll definitely opt for that option. But I think in my humble opinion, I think the first point to raise would be if a referee, so like game week in, game week out, you know how we rate players, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how we rate like team of the week or whatever. You rate referees on their performance for that game week by pundits only. So if Sky Sports is the stream service for that game week, the pundits for Sky Sports rate the referee's performance,
They
all
do.
referees for
They
each
do,
game.
but they're supposed to. They're supposed to back those. Like they're over there. Like they're
No, but
told
listen,
to
listen, listen.
back them. Like there's no.
But I'm adding a layer onto this. I know that they do this, but the bottom three referees, the
Mm-hmm,
ones that are rated the worst,
mm-hmm,
they should be demoted to the lower league, and from the lower league, they should promote three referees every game week because that increases competition of refereeing in the league. Because it's not a monopoly of 7, 8 referees. No matter what they do, they'll referee the next game week. Okay,
mm-hmm.
it creates healthy competition. It also creates fear amongst them for making wrong decisions. And young new referees with a thirst to referee a Premier League game may have that dream fulfilled. Essentially, keeping the football club league system, but for referees. Does that make sense? Right? I think that's healthy for everyone involved. And I don't think it takes too much to implement that. Point one. Point two, like you said, referees should come out and justify their decisions. I'm with you on that. But the point I would make is, you know how there's post-match interviews, like the short ones right after the match that Sky Sports journalist asked like a couple of players right after the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they do that with referees right
Mm-hmm.
after the game? It doesn't have to be a press conference because I think if you put referee in a press conference, it gives them too much importance as well. Whereas the games between two teams, it's not about the referee. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
that's the
mean?
whole point. But if the referees weren't the talking points of the game, then no one's gonna care. No one's gonna no one wants the referee to. That happens in the Champions League. No one talks about the referee after a Champions League game. But after each Premier League game week, you talk about the referee. Is like, why? And for me, like, fans also have a bit of part in this, because at this point, like when something goes against Chelsea, fans are gonna make fun of Chelsea. Oh, this happened. Like you shouldn't cry. This, and they were right. They were right. But the same thing when happens to them, they're like, oh, this is outrageous. This is this. This is that. And then the other team, like for example, United. So if it happens to United, you're gonna bash United fans, and when it happens to something else, United fans are gonna bash other teams. Like what? It's a circle. They need to come
Hmm.
together and be like, no, this is like as football fans, not as individual team fans, but as football fans. Like no, like we need to be together. Like remember what happened against the Super League? The whole fan base came out. What they because there's no football without fans. So when the fans aren't happy, they're gonna change it. They can't do football without fans. The same thing that happened with Super
But
Leagues, that should happen with PGMOL. That's when they're gonna change because without any pressure, they're not gonna change. They're not gonna change. And I hail Papa
but
Wenger for this. And Papa Wenger said, when I die, I'm gonna ask God, where are the referees, heaven or hell, and then I'm gonna decide where I wanna go.
that's quite funny actually, if you think about
Like,
it. But again, I'd say like as much as I would love for that to happen, in the world we live in, it can never happen because there's some rivalries that are too fiery and they're fueled by hatred. Okay, they would never come together. Liverpool and Everton can never come together.
but they
I'll tell you
have to
that.
for the sake of football. Like, you need to put like football comes before this. Football comes before when the
But
Super League happened. Everyone came together. No one cared. It's Arsenal, Chelsea. No one cared. Everyone came together. It's about football. It's not about your team. It's about football. It's about Premier League. It's about a greater good. It's about a greater good for the Premier League. If this changes, everyone's gonna be happy. I'm gonna be happy. You're gonna be happy. Everyone's gonna be happy. And I'm not saying they're
I,
gonna eradicate all the bad decisions, but like bring it down. At least bring it down. No one's saying you can't.
yeah.
You're supposed to be perfect. No one's saying that. And
Hmm.
introduction of VAR, I feel like has done us a big favor in this that it's putting them out on the spot, like because now you have VAR. How are you giving these outrageous decisions?
Yeah, because
It's
again,
exposed
if it
them.
wasn't for
VAR has
VAR,
exposed them. Yeah.
VAR has truly, well and truly exposed them. But if it wasn't for VAR, the incompetence would be through the roof. Through VAR, at least, like, you know, you get to see sometimes they make the right decision as well. It's not like
Yeah,
they're
sometimes they do.
perpetually
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah, yeah. Sometimes they
right?
do, obviously.
But
Like,
again, it's a 50-50 where VAR is only a good thing and it's exposed us to the discrepancies in the world of refereeing, right?
hmm
But on top of that, I would say, like as a last point, now this is wishful thinking of the highest order. But if it was possible to have some kind of AI, which now they're testing for offsides and drawing lines and stuff like that, some kind of AI that could assist in refereeing games in any form, I think that would be great. So let's start by me giving an example, right? Um, yeah, as I was saying, basically the idea is that in the world of AI, right, where technology of new sorts is welcome, why don't PGMOL consider introducing an AI that acts as the VAR referee? Because essentially, the problem is that if you use technology and two humans are making the decisions on both sides, it's prone to humane error,
hmm
which we are seeking to eliminate because the one thing AI and technology can give you is consistency. Even if
hmm
it's for the worst, at least it's consistency.
Yeah.
Maybe doing that would be in their financial interests as well, because you don't need a human and pay his wages when you have, say, a technology and IP that you can then license out if you're the first one to have anything like that. You can make $1 billion entity $1 trillion one by doing that. It's all in their favor. So let's see. Again, not a 2, 3 year process, but worth
Yeah,
giving a
but
shot.
like this is the point. Like a lot of people say like VAR is bad, VAR is this, VAR is that. From like and they hate technology, like VAR technology. And for me, it's like the VAR is not at fault. It's because the same incompetent referee that's refereeing the game is the same guy who's going to be sitting in the VAR room. So like it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the people that are running the technology that's the problem. And like your AI, because I don't think they're gonna bring AI in very soon, because they were supposed to bring in the semi-automated offside technology this season, and this first it was supposed to start at the start of the season, but then they pushed it forward to mid part of the season, and now they pushed it to next season because they believe it's not tried and tested yet. It's being used in other leagues. It's been used in the Champions League. It's been used in the FIFA World Cup. Everyone's happier with that technology. No, I
Yeah.
don't see people complaining much about that. It's quick, like because our VR our offside decisions, VR takes so long just to see who's the last guy, where to draw the lines.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
done in seconds. It's literally done in seconds. It's offside because yes, it semi-automatic. What people say is like it if you're a toenail offside, it's gonna give you an offside. Offside is offside because with offside, there's no subjectiveness. There's no two ways about offside. If you're offside, you're offside. Either it's by a nail or it's by a mile. Offside is offside. There's no two ways about it. So, but even in then, they're not bringing in semi like AI technology. I don't think they're gonna do AI technology and remove these because it's a monopoly. Like you said, it is a
Yeah.
monopoly. So why would they shoot themselves in their own leg? Like they're not going to do that. They're never going to, like, even with something that's proven not for them, but at least for me it is. They're not bringing that in, but they're going to bring other stuff now, other AI and technology. No, they're not. They're never going to replace these humans. They're not, never going to replace these referees.
Yeah. No, I
They're
get
going
that. It's a bit wishful to hope for, but you know, potentially a solution in the distant future. Maybe. Maybe.
maybe because it's true. Like there are some like law is not precise. Okay, so there is some subjectiveness to it. Okay, it's like there
Hmm.
is some subjectiveness, but that much inconsistency is what the problem is for me. Like you can't be this inconsistent. Like at least if you're saying this is something like you interpret it this way, then just be consistent with it, right? Just
Yeah.
make sure that that's the decision you give week in, week out, week in, week out. If you're consistent, I'm sure no one's gonna complain. Maybe you'll find some few people that will, but that's it's gonna decrease. It's gonna decrease the amount of people that are gonna complain for sure. If you're at least consistent. Not even changing their decisions, just being consistent with it. That's it. I think that's just gonna fix a lot of stuff.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Even if it's consistency to make things worse, at least it's consistency. At least you know what to expect game in, game out. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what football fans want. That's what clubs want. That's what
Mm-hmm.
managers want. The
Because you know
only
what's yeah.
people, the only people who don't want that is referees and
Mm.
PGMOL because it puts them out of business.
They're
Referees in
too
particular,
protective. They're too
they're too
protective.
protected. Um, so let's see. I mean, it's been an interesting podcast where we just like
Mm.
it's been more of a passionate discussion than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And at times, I would even say that we haven't been completely reasonable. But the idea is that I'm sure we're not the only ones who feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may share the same sentiment. And that's enough for us to feel validated.
Mm.
Because
Like the need change needs to come. Like it
yeah.
needs to be changed. This system cannot work. This needs to be changed. I mean, I'm not positive. I'm not optimistic that it's gonna change, but it has to. And like this is a problem that's like that's been going on, and I don't know what's gonna happen to this. And every Premier League fan is passionate about this. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's not just Arsenal fans. It's not just Chelsea fans. It's not just Liverpool. It's not just United. It's almost all of them. Like talk to a
Yeah.
Wolves fan. Like
Yeah.
talk to a Wolves fan. This whole podcast would just be teen. That's it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean they have been at the receiving end of a lot of these decisions this season, right? And it's one of those things that they have to swallow up, gobble up, and move on to the next game and hope that the same thing doesn't happen. Hope. They don't know that because
Mm.
there's no consistency either way. So good or worse, they don't know what to expect, as do other football fans. But yeah, they in particular have uh, been done a lot of injustice to this season, 100%.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble.
Yeah, it's the Mourinho, bro. If Mourinho was a manager of Wolves, he would have been fine, at least at least like 100K, and that's me speaking like very very conservatively.
But yeah, I mean, if we want to go on, or probably we can go on for hours and hours, and that would just be like cussing them out and just,
Yeah,
yeah, I'll just be cussing them out. So there's like, that's what our opinions are on this topic and what we think should happen with the PGMOL. We think it's incompetence on top of corruption. I, I'm sure you feel that way too, right? So
100%.
yeah, that's our opinion. Obviously, whatever we say in this podcast are opinions, no facts, nothing. It's
Mhm.
just our two opinions from two different lenses,
Disclaimer.
but
Disclaimer.
just two different men in glasses in two different lenses. So that's this episode. That concludes it, and inshallah, we'll meet you for another episode of MIG with a different topic. Hopefully, a
Yes, sir.
more positive one, a more
Yeah.
happy one. But looking at the state of this team, I don't
Yeah.
think it's gonna happen. So,
Yeah.
anyway, take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and please
Thanks,
share,
everyone.
like,
Thanks.
comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you.